Roya here, live in the studio. Very good evening to you.
Hi,
TikTok fighting for survival in one of its biggest markets, the US of A.
The lawyers for TikTok had 15 minutes to make their case on Monday against a law that could see the wildly popular app being banned in the United States. A three-judge panel also heard arguments from TikTok's Chinese owner ByteDance and a group of creators who sued to block the law, as well as from the US Justice Department. Signed by President Joe Biden in April, the legislation gave ByteDance until mid-January to sell the app to a non-Chinese buyer on national security concerns. Verika Bahel has more.
Squaring off with the Justice Department in a Washington appeals courtroom, social media app TikTok made its case, arguing against a law that could see it banned in the US unless it's sold to a non-Chinese owner by January 19th. Presenting its oral arguments to a three-judge panel, TikTok's lawyer argued that the law violates Americans' freedom of speech.
Mere foreign ownership can't possibly be a justification because it would turn the First Amendment on its head. We have lots of publications that are owned by foreign entities.
TikTok and its Chinese parent company ByteDance have long been under scrutiny by the US, who argue the app poses national security threats, with concerns Beijing could use it to access users' data and thus covertly manipulate what its 170 million American users consume via TikTok. In court, the government reframed Beijing as a foreign adversary, not an entity.
TikTok is an application, and what it does is it gathers a lot of information, and it uses that information to try to assess what sorts of videos and other content is going to be of interest. The problem is that that same data is extremely valuable to a foreign adversary.
The timing of the hearing comes in the middle of the US presidential race. Both Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are currently heavily active on the app, vying for young voters. Both TikTok and the Justice Department have asked for a ruling by December 6th. Legal experts widely expect the case to go all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Times for TikTok. Crisis hit Boeing, meanwhile, announcing a hiring freeze to save cash.
The aerospace giant has been grappling with a crippling strike at its plants on the US West Coast after workers rejected a new contract proposal. The walkout is now in its fourth day, with more than 30,000 employees bringing the production of Boeing's best-selling jets, including the 737 MAX, to a virtual halt. On Monday, the company said it would freeze hiring and cut spending, including suspending most orders for parts used in the 737, 767 and 777 jets, a move that could have considerable impact on its supply chain. Talks between management and union negotiators on a new labour contract are set to resume on Tuesday. Chief Finance Officer Brian West said the strike jeopardises Boeing's recovery in a, quote, significant way. Mark.
In Brussels, meanwhile, anger over a potential plant closure at Audi has turned into a wider protest against Europe's industrial policy.
Well, more than 5,000 people marched through Brussels today and paralysed public transport. The protest was led by Audi workers facing the threat of a plant closure in Belgium and on strike for weeks. But thousands others joined in solidarity with them. Audi announced in July plans to wind down production at its EV plant in southern Brussels, a move that could cost 3,000 jobs. Audi's weak sales of its flagship electric SUVs reflect wider struggles of the European auto sector in the face of fierce price competition from Chinese rivals, as the clock ticks down on an EU deadline to phase out the sale of petrol-powered cars by 2035. Earlier this month, Audi's parent Volkswagen sent shockwaves by announcing it was considering plant closures in Germany. Many of the protesters voiced their anger at EU policymakers.
They've let us be eaten up by the Asian market, the Chinese market. All those rules regarding internal combustion cars have caused major problems in our car manufacturing. And then they wanted to move ahead far too quickly towards electric cars.
Every day we hear about companies closing down in industry. If politicians don't wake up, it will mean the end of industrial Europe.
One of the measures we're calling for is workers to be involved and trained to ensure that they can play a role in the transition to sustainable industry.
Anger of the Audi workers spreads. Next, China's economic growth seems to be slowing further, and major US investment banks have cut their projections for the country.
Goldman Sachs and Citigroup have both reduced their growth forecasts for China after soft economic activity in August highlighted the country's weak recovery. Both banks now estimate China's full-year economic growth for 2024 at 4.7%, trimming down from their earlier forecasts of 4.9% and 4.8% respectively, below the government's target of 5%. According to official data released on Saturday, China's industrial output in August grew 4.5% year-on-year, marking the slowest growth since March. Retail sales rose just 2.1% in August. A separate report also showed foreign direct investment had decreased by 31.5% year-on-year in the January to August period. That was a bigger slump than during January to July, Mark.
This all leads us to the big business question. How are the markets at the start of this new trading week?
Well, Asian shares traded weaker this Monday as investors digested the latest economic data out of China. European stocks ended mixed, with London's FTSE flat, as you can see. Paris and Frankfurt slightly in the red. Wall Street is also diverging this Monday as the market's focus shifts to the Federal Reserve's interest rate decision coming up later in the week. So you can see the Dow is floating near record levels. Nasdaq currently down 0.6 of a percentage point.
As Russia's war in Ukraine continues, more and more Ukrainian women are taking up jobs that are traditionally the domain of men.
Well, with tens of thousands of men being sent to the front lines, a huge labour shortage is threatening male-dominated industries and Ukraine's overall recovery. The country's women are stepping up to fill the gaps, working as lorry drivers, security guards and coal miners. Eliza Herbert has the story.
It's a dream job for Lilia Sulya. She is a truck driver working for Ukrainian retailer the Fozzy Group, and she's filling a crucial shortage in Ukraine's workforce. She also recruits women for the job, which is traditionally dominated by men, and is now one of 6 females in the company.
Yes, people are curious and shocked when they see me. They all film me on their phones when I deliver or load my lorry. They take pictures of me, whether it's passers-by or others. They're all in shock. Soon, there'll be more women in logistics, and people won't be that shocked anymore.
Since the Russian invasion began, Ukraine has lost more than a quarter of its workforce. Tens of thousands of men have taken to the front lines, and millions of people have fled the country. In a survey conducted by Ukraine's Ministry of Economy, nearly 60% of 3,000 companies said finding skilled workers was their biggest challenge. The issue has prompted many in human resources to think innovatively about how to make workspaces more attractive to women.
We automate certain processes or adapt them. We have training courses and create a safe environment. Still, there aren't enough women drivers to cover our needs. Apart from that, women have a lot of other offers in the labour market where they can reach their potential.
Wages are also a factor. The average monthly wage in Ukraine has climbed to the equivalent of $470, up from roughly $350 a year ago, driven largely by companies' needs to lure more workers.